Hello, welcome back to What's on Tower. I'm Arnaud, so Master Sommelier and Head of Wholesale for White Suns Wine. Today we're going to talk about decanting. It's true that you all have many questions about it and when to do it, when not to do it on certain wines and occasions. Overall, you have two main purposes of decanting. So the first one is usually when you have a young wine that needs to breathe. You need to get a bit of air in the wine to open up, get more flavors from it, and also soften a little bit the tannins of the wine. So that's one of them. On the other side, you could also decant when the wines are very old. Let's say you have a wine that's seated in your cellar, lying down for 40 or sometimes plus years. You will have sediments at the bottom. So what you want to do is rather than opening completely the wine, because the wine tends to be quite fragile at that stage, it's usually to separate the sediments, keeping the sediments that are forming, let's say, into the bottle, so keeping them in the bottle and getting a clear liquid in your decanter. So for that, usually you'll have two, and you use more or less two styles of decanters. Obviously at home you don't always have every single decanters, but you tend to use usually a more narrow, close decanters for old vintages, and usually a pretty open decanters when you need to have wines that need to breathe, and usually younger wines. You probably heard also about double decanting. Double decanting is the fact to take the liquid, and usually that's done on young vintages, but take the liquid of the wine, the wine itself, pour it in your decanter, and then put it back in the bottle. When you go to dine with friends, colleagues, you very often want to keep the bottle also and to show what's the label. So that's the whole purpose usually of double decanting. It makes it very easy for service point of view. When the wine's already decanted, it breathes, it's in the bottle, and you just take the bottle to serve. So usually if you have a young vintage, there is no need to clean the top of the bottle. If you have a very old wine, sometimes you've got a bit of mold. Lean on with you and just wipe slightly the top of the bottle with the cork inside, and then wipe it again as soon as you remove the cork, just to make sure that again, old dust, etc. will not fall into the wine. Now, if we want to decant the wine in your decanter, so there's one thing I personally usually do, unless you know you have no scents and no different smells in your decanters, the decanter it's clean constantly, but sometimes you can have a bit of stain. Like a bit of stain, some water remaining. You pour a little bit of the wines, put it back in the glass. So you have a decanter that's already, and then pretty simple. You've tasted the wine, you know the wine is perfect, you know it needs decanting, and then your decanting is pretty simple. So usually if you have a young vintage, you can go pretty. There is another thing. If let's say you have that very old bottle lying in your cellar for years, etc. Usually you tend to have either a cradle or anything of that sort to keep the wine lying down. You don't want to shake the sediments at all. You really want to separate them. So you will usually open your bottle that way, let's say as we've just done it, and then you will have a light. So very often you will go either again to restaurants or some friends, they will have a candle. Candle is the old way to use it. Nowadays, you can use a torch. Mobile is a pretty good light usually to see through and stop whenever you have sediments coming. So the idea is to have that old bottle, decant it slowly over the light so you can see through the bottle, and when the sediments are coming, so obviously not the little dust, like the slight powder that you have at the beginning, but when the big sediments are coming, that's usually when you stop. Most of the time, a very old bottle, you will keep like about 1 centimeter of wine. Saying that we're going to be decanting these young wines, but again, paying attention to the fact that there is sediments or not, you usually go over. And very gently pouring the wines into the decanter. Now, some of you will not feel comfortable about it. You can literally, let's say I will stop especially for that, but literally take your two hands and pour it over slowly, almost till the end. And again, you will be watching just the neck of the bottle or the shoulder to see when the sediments are coming. Here it's a young wine, needs a bit of air, so there is not much. and that's it. At that stage, again, if you want to show the bottle to your friends, pretty easy, use a funnel and put it back in the bottle. If the bottle is very old and then you've kept sediments, so one thing is very simple to do. You can literally take a little bit of like distilled water, anything that will not give any flavor. What you want to do is to clean the bottle slowly with some distilled water. Again, remove everything that you don't need so you have a clean bottle inside, and then put it back in the bottle. If you want me, I'll be more than happy actually. We can even go through that. Let's say you have that very old bottle. I've got my distilled water. Very simple. I'll be cleaning it up. Then don't hesitate to shake it because sometimes they actually can be stuck on the side of the glass inside. Then you take either a recipient, like today I'll put it back onto the decanter and back in the bottle. And again, you can use two hands to put it back. So you aerate the wine here. That's why it's called double decanting. You decant it once onto a container, like your decanter, and decant it a second time back into the bottle. Usually, when you do this one on a young wine, you always end up with the wine doing a little bit like of a mousse, as there is a little sparkle. That's completely normal, there is nothing wrong. But just please at the end, don't go all in one go, because you will put some wine all over your table, but just slowly by the end. Here we are. Your wine's ready to be served. What type of wine we should decant, what wines we do not decant. We've seen earlier that testing the wine will help you to know whether you need to decant it or not. If you have, and usually happen with delicate grape variety Pinot Noir, let's say it's one of them. If you have a very old Pinot Noir and you just test it out of the bottle, sometimes even though you have sediments in the bottle, you feel the wine very delicate, very fragile, and whether you swirl it a lot on your palate, the wine will not give you much more. You see the power of the wine will not go to 10 steps ahead in terms of intensity of aromas. You have a very delicate wines in that case. So what you want to do sometimes is not even decanting. Let it open in the glass over the course of the dinner. That will be sufficient. So we talked about decanting reds, young ones to brief, old ones to separate the sediments, but you can also decant white wine. You have certain whites that are very powerful. We talked about barrel-aged Chardonnay, either from New World, sometimes from Burgundy also. Do not hesitate to decant them. Again, the young vintages of white or red will need to open up. And it's true that if you just open the bottle to serve your glasses and your friends right after, the wine sometimes will not show you as much as it should. So in this case, again, decanting white wine, and you will use like a more narrow decanter, so to be able to place that just on a nice bucket. So white wine are good to be decanted, sweet wine also in certain cases. Sparkling wine, that will completely depend, and I have to be very objective in that. It will depend on your preferences. It's true that you have some houses, estates that want you to decant their sparkling wines. You also have other people that prefer to have their sparkling wine with the sparkle of it. The mousse, the sparkling, this sensation of bubbles on the palate. And if you decant your sparkling wine, sometimes you can lose a little bit of that bubbles. So that again is completely subject to you. The best wine again is the one you prefer. How long do we need to decant wine? So usually the younger the wine is, the longer you need to decant it. But you always think about the category, the structure of the wine. Let's talk about Burgundy, because Bourgogne has all this classification between regional appellation, communal, so commune, that could be Jaurès, Chambertin, Chambol-Musigny, then this Premier Cru and Grand Cru. If you have a Bourgogne Pinot Noir, like pretty juicy, easy drinking, etc., you could simply decant it right before serving it. If you have a Premier Cru That's again the latest release from the producer. You have a 220 or 21. You also want to decant it. But compared to the previous one, you want to decant it a little earlier because the wine, you know that the wine through its category will have much more to give if you bring a bit more air and oxygen through the wine. So, some Pinots will have the structure to be able to decant it, to be decanted hours before. Others, all Pinot, will give you more pleasure at pouring it in the glass and let it open or decant in the glass. At home, you will have sometimes different shape of glasses. You could have what's so-called universal, but like this much more open, what you call Pinot or Nebbiolo style of glass that will indirectly help you to decant the wine and to aerate it in the glass itself. Please test the wine before. I know, and sometimes it is hard to judge whether you need to decant it hours before or 2 minutes before. But again, the sensation you have on your palate when you taste the wine and want to decide either to decant it or not will give you a lot. A wine that has got, again, a lot of power, a lot of tannins and a lot to give, you can decant it hours before. I hope this video helps you to understand how to decant and why decanting. Please like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. See you.